It's another day, another podcast episode in the conversation with Maya. Y'all, we are pushing along. I am so excited. It is, at the time of this recording, it's Monday, September 29th, 11:46 p.m. And I always look forward to recording a podcast episode. Yeah, I do. I always look forward to doing this. This has been something that I have been enjoying. It's been another outlet. It's been another place for me to express myself. As I said, I always be having things I want to talk about, but then things happen, right? And we kind of get into it. Let me just say, I think I talked about this on like one of the other episodes, how it's getting cold in Georgia, y'all. Like, oh my goodness, I was meeting up with one of the students from my class, right? Because you guys know I teach every Monday. And I got out the car. Y'all felt that breeze. You know, when you're from Nebraska, like, cold weather really doesn't bother us because it's just a little chilly, right? But like it ain't nothing. But I don't know, that cold kind of got to me today, and my behind be liking to wear, dresses and shorts and tank tops, and it's like, girl, you better put on some clothes before you get sick, okay? And I really can't afford to be sick. I just no. But besides that, oh yeah, man. So like I was trying to, it was like National Coffee Day, right? And I know some girls were like, oh my gosh, you shouldn't be drinking and eating that anyways. But like Dunkin' Donuts had like a free, I think you got like a free medium coffee and a free donut. Well, no, not a free donut. You got a free coffee with a purchase of something. So of course I would get the cheapest thing. Man, let me just say this. Okay, here we go. Quick rant. If you close at 10 o'clock, you don't close at 9:50. If you close at 9:50, then your hours need to be from 6 a.m. to 9:50 p.m. Man, I wanted to go order, right? And I'm driving along. It was like about another 25 minutes. And it said that I would get the Dunkin' Donuts at like 9:53, right? Mind you, the store says that it closes at 10 o'clock, so I'm expecting you to be open for another 9 to 8 minutes or so, right? I go on the mobile app because I was going to try to redeem the thing. It's talking about, drive-through closed, in-store orders closed, going inside. I'm like, okay. So I'm still trying to understand. Like, I don't know if I did something wrong. Somebody can let me know. I've never really worked in the fast food or restaurant business like that. I just was like, man, like, come on now. Like, if y'all close early, then just close early. But like, don't let that affect the app. Like, I couldn't even use it. So it's okay, y'all. I had taught my class and I did good. I came home and I actually ate me an avocado egg sandwich. So healthier. I'm going to be working on changing some things that I've been eating going forward. Also, I haven't had Chick-fil-A in a month, and good job on my, like, can we give it a round of applause for me? Because y'all know, if you don't know, I love Chick-fil-A. And I've said that when I get married again, that I would have Chick-fil-A as part of my catering. So just letting you know if you're listening to this and you are supposed to be coming to my wedding or whenever the Lord finds that fit and in his will. But I would like Chick-fil-A as part of my catering. But anyways, I just want to say, I want to shout out my corporate baddie cousin. I'm not going to say her name. Yeah, because I don't know who's listening to this, and I love my family, and I just feel like, yeah, I'm not going to disclose her name, but we had a great conversation, and in this podcast episode is going to be called Raise Your Standard. So, first, I'm grateful because I feel like my cousin and I have been getting real close, and she came down to visit me. I'm not going to mention where she's from or anything, because all that's personal information. But anyways, she came and visited me this summer, my sister and I, my other cousin, and we went to Myrtle Beach. Like, yes. And I learned some things on that trip with her and, with her and whatnot, right? So I don't know if you guys, like, whenever you're around someone, let's just say maybe like you either know them or you do know them, sometimes you're like used to the way that they operate, right? And now mind you, let me back up a little bit. So the Airbnb that we had chose, I was very picky, right? Like, I'm not going to go to a place that looks like where, like, I feel like something may, I'm trying to be careful in the way I say it, but a place that's nice looking. Let me just say that, right? And the people that went through what I went to, with people that were going with me, excuse me, my friend was also coming. I knew, like, things need to look clean. I don't need to, they're not trying to see no type of blemish or anything, right? So while we were there, it was very, very nice and cool. But one thing had, like, stood out to me, and I should have texted her and asked her before this, but when we were looking at restaurants, my cousin actually would consider the rating really over everything, right? And so I can't remember what rating scale she would base things off of, but she had a particular rating in which it had to be this and up, and that's how we compared different restaurants. I think I might have put it in my notes what the standard that she said. But I remember that, and I remember we would be laughing about it because we're like, girl, are you serious? And she was like super serious. So we just gonna say 4.3, 4 point. I don't even remember what the scale was, but I remember that when we were looking and considering the different places, she would always bring up how the rating mattered to her and how, it had to be a certain rating. So that stood out to me. And so over the past couple of days, we had talked, and she sent me a text message, and she was going on a date. I'm like, so we're sound like, yes, 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 yes. And she sent me a couple of the restaurants, and she was like, hey, like, let me know, like, which one, like, I need to go to. And I'm like, okay. Now, first of all, these restaurants are very high end. And I'm like, very, very high end, very nice, very romantic, bougie, like, yes, clock that, okay? So I'm looking through them, and TikTok is like one of those places I feel like is really good because it really will show you like the full experience, and it will kind of show you like everything that's going on. And so I'm looking through them, and then I'm kind of judging, and I'm like, okay, don't go here because it looks like this, or don't go here because it's given this, right? Like, I'm looking at the aesthetic. I'm looking at like the whole thing, right? Because, like, if someone's going to take you out and they're giving you options, like, let's make sure we choose a very nice place. Anyway, so she ends up, I don't remember which place they chose, but I'm not going to disclose it on here. But anyways, they end up finding a place, and it was funny because she was showing me her outfit, and she was like, she sent me a pair of the heels because y'all know me, y'all know I'm a big heel girl. So she was like, I thought of you basically, and I just knew like I gotta have these type of heels, like this screamed Amaya, and I knew, and it was just funny because I was like, yes, correct. Anyway, so After that, I told her, I was like, hey, make sure you call me on Sunday because I want to know how the date went. Like, I want to know, like, how it was and all that. So, let me just say this, right? So, I'm kind of in the season of my life where, like, dating is like not necessarily a priority. I think I'm getting to a point where I'm a little bit more open with it, but it's not like a I'm actively looking. Like I'm open but not looking, right? And so my cousin, she's been on a lot more dates. She's had a lot more experience. And our conversation on Sunday kind of put things in perspective um in regards of some things. So we were having a conversation and she was telling me about the guy that she went out with, right? And basically everything had went very well. But that's not really what I want to focus on, right? She was telling me how she is very particular about who she goes out with, right? And she doesn't allow just anybody to take her out. She doesn't allow anybody to get her time. She doesn't allow anybody to take her out to certain places. Like I'm talking about, I call her a corporate baddie cousin for a reason because she has this, what do we say, aura or this thing about her where you're not going to come with her with nonsense, right? Needless to say, we were having this conversation and the way that she was speaking on this time or this stance of very, very high end, right? And so I wouldn't say she was being picky, but she was very particular, right? And what really stood out to me in our conversation was that she pays attention, but she doesn't allow anything that she believes would be disrespectful to her, be disrespectful to her standard, who it is that she's built, come in between her, right? And she's told me, like, she's had, guys that have been trying to get with her for years, but she has turned them down because one, she's not interested, or two, she doesn't believe that they are at the standard that can meet her, that she's satisfied with, right? And so I was talking to her and I was like, oh wow. I was like, okay. And she was telling me how the date went well. The guy that she went out with was very attentive. He had like he like traveled some miles. Was arriving early. He arrived early. He dressed very nice. To my understanding, he communicated and whatnot. And it wasn't just that, but she was telling me how, like, on the date, there were small things that were happening, and he just didn't let her touch a bill. Like, he didn't let her do anything. But she told me, like, it made her open her eyes to see, like, oh wow, like there's men like this. Like, there's actually men out here who will really, one, treat you right, two, but they'll go above and beyond. So, so we're talking, right? And again, I'm not really big on dating right now. Like, it's not really a priority, right? And her and I had a conversation, right? And so I was just being open and honest, and I was just laughing with her. And I was like, yeah, I was like, I'm very simple, because I am a very simple girl, right? And I was like, like if a guy were to ask me like where I want to go, I would be like, I don't know, like Chick-fil-A, Panera. And I promise you, my cousin looked at the phone. I think she got up and left. Like, I think she literally got up and left the room. And I was like, I know, I know, I know, I know. And so then I had to try to explain to her, like, listen, I know. And she was like, hold on. Do you think you're worth a $6 sandwich? Do you think you're worth basically a $4 meal? Is that what you think that you're worth? And I was like, oh no, I'm just very simple, and I'm just, I'm not into. And she was just looking at me, and and I don't mean this in like a cocky way. Like I don't mean this in an arrogant, but she was like, I think very highly of you, Amaya. Like you're a high value woman. Why would, her whole stance was, why would you accept? Like, why would you, like, that shouldn't basically even be an offer, right? And she was like, you think you're worth a $6 sandwich? And I was like, no, I'm not. I've been working on my mindset, like shifting my mindset on certain things, right? And where my mind goes, right? But she was like very shocked. She was like, oh my goodness, like, oh no. No, 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 no. You can't. No, 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 no. And I was like, okay. I was like, I definitely know that I'm supposed to be having this conversation because this is kind of the second day that I've been talked about raising your standard because my godmom was talking to me about it the day before. And some of it I think could be, like I said, I think experience is the best teacher. I think you learn. So because I'm not a person that does a lot of dates, like I've met men that, like, there's like one guy that I think I've met that told me he spends X amount on dates. And I remember when he told me that, I was like, oh yeah, you don't have to spend that much on me. Like you don't. And I'm looking back and I'm just like, ooh. But my cousin was like, I think she's probably offended for me. Like, why would you think that you're worth that, right? And and I kind of had to sit there and I was like, yeah. I said, okay. I said, you got it. Like that's more like a lunch thing. But if someone is wanting to take you out or someone's going to do X, Y, and Z, don't suggest something lower. Like don't go for the bare minimum, even if that's just who you are, even if like you're a person that's not materialistic and whatnot. I think you also have to consider the type of person that you are and whatnot. And I'm not saying that if someone goes on a cheap date or someone goes and do a $4 big bag, man, those things be hitting from Wendy's. I'm not gonna lie. Not saying that's bad. That's not the point of what I'm trying to get at. But in our conversation, some things were coming to light, and I was like, okay, yeah, like yeah, like why there's an issue when you choose to settle for something below or beneath you because it's almost like I'm good, but I'm just going to settle because I just want this. So I'm just going to settle because, he asked me out and I haven't dated in so long. So I'm just going to take what he gives me, and no amount of effort is being given on the other end, right? And so I do believe you have, people will treat you and people will go as far as you allow them, right? And in my conversation with my cousin, she let me know, when, she's looking at the way a man's wearing his pants. She's looking at if he get it tailored. She's looking at, I mean, she is literally examining, right? And if she identifies that this person or this situation is beneath her, let me not say beneath, but if she feels like it doesn't match to her value or is not going to meet her value, she separates herself. She's not going to lower her standard for something that she believes, isn't worth it, right? And it really opened up my eyes because I was like, yeah, you're right. I'm not worth no $6 sandwich. Like, you're right. If and then I kind of thought about it on like business wise, right? Because raising your standard isn't not just about like your love life or personal, but it can relate to business or the way that you deal with things in life. And so I remember I was talking to a business mentor, and she was like, well, when you're going after new clients, go after businesses that have been established for like 5 years or more, because when you go for new startups and whatnot, they typically may not have the budget to hire your services, right? So for me, I was like, well, I'm just, before I like had talked to her, my mindset was like, well, I'll go for new businesses because they're easier and then I can try to get my foot in the door. And then, they may have a lower budget, but, I need the business, I need the money, so I'm gonna just take it. And so you have to understand or identify patterns in your life where there's certain areas in my life where I have a high standard, right? But then there's other areas where, okay, no, it's consistent that you just are okay with taking the bare minimum. Like you're okay with just settling with what you have just to get by. But part of knowing who you are is also knowing the value, right? When you know the value of something, you treat it differently, you care for it, you look after. You're not just going to take a diamond ring, right, and just go swimming in the ocean. Like, you're not just going to take a diamond ring, right, and go stick your hand, in the trash, or you're not just going to go out and just start running, right, because there's a risk that you may lose what you have on you because you're not properly identifying in the environment that I am or who I'm around and whatnot, right? So anything that you love or you care for, you protect, you value it. And anything that comes to try to question the value, that tries to diminish, that tries to take it away, you have to remove it. Because I believe, that you have to, of course, examine yourself, right? So if you don't know who you are or you're not assured in yourself, other people can see that and they can try to capitalize or they can try to use that against you, right? Like, oh, she doesn't see her worth. Oh, she doesn't think she's all that. So yeah, I'm gonna just do her however I want to do her, or I'm gonna just make her lower her prices because, she doesn't see her value, right? That's the dangerous part. When you settling is basically you just actually, y'all know I like to do definitions. So when you settle means to accept or to agree to something that one considers to be less than satisfactory. So when you settle, you're basically saying, I'm good here. I'm gonna just stay here because that's just enough, right? When you have a standard keeps you grounded. It keeps you focused. So that way when something comes, you be like, nah, my standard's a little higher. I can't accept this business deal. I can't accept this from you because it would come against my standard. It would come against the value that I have for myself. See, it's not rude to have a standard. You're not. I was trying to tell my cousin, I was like, I want you to know that I don't think you're stuck up. I don't think you're bad. I think it's amazing that you have certain things that you'll say yes and no to, but you are sure, right? Because she's an established woman. Like she's got it all on her own, right? So, when you come to her, or if you're going to be around her or you want to take her around, you need to come correct, right? And if anything's coming to her, not putting in the effort, that tries to question who she is, that tries to derail her or anything like that, she's going to separate herself because one, I've set a standard for myself. Same thing in relationships and friendships and in business. If something has come against the standard of something that you have built, we got to go back to the drawing board. We got to, wait a minute. Right? And having a standard is good to have, because when you have a certain standard, you're not going to allow, when you'll be able to identify when something's coming for your standard. As you raise your standard, I think when we were having a conversation last night, oh yeah, here it is, y'all. I found it. 4.5 rating. I looked at my notes. So I think she only likes 4.5 and up, right? So it's consistent. right? So anything that she attaches herself to, or anything that we attach ourselves to, there should be a certain standard. I'm not going to accept something that could potentially make me question myself, my worth, or anything like that. I'm going to go for the things that is going to help me, that's going to show my standard, if not more, exemplify or make it even better. And so in our conversation, I said, okay, because the Bible says, let every man examine himself. And you have to examine yourself, right? If there's an area in your life where you have low standards or low self-esteem, or where you just settle, I would encourage you to, because we're talking about raise the bar, but don't put a ceiling there. Like, keep raising it. Like, keep going. Don't put a limit, right? If you want the best, go for the best, right? Because after our conversation, she was like, the man that she went out with, he had kind of changed her mindset, where she realized, oh, wow. Like, and I told her, you deserve that, right? And so he set the bar, he set a standard, right? So anyone that's coming really after him has to either be there, if not a little higher, right? Because she was super impressed. I remember the first time I had raised my prices on my business for video production, and I remember I was so nervous to raise it. It was so easy getting, the low balling projects, because, like, they're going to say yes, right? But when I did raise it, you'll have your yeses and then you'll have your nos, right? But that one yes is like, hey, someone believed, or hey, yeah, you can do that. You can think highly of yourself. And people that respect you and love you and whatnot, they will respect that, and they will try to add to that, right? So if you set a standard and someone is complaining about your standard, they're complaining about your boundaries, they're complaining because you have a certain value of yourself and you see the value within you, and they can't respect it, then you got to go, right? And after that conversation, yeah, you're right. I'm not worth no $9 combo meal. I love Chick-fil-A, y'all. I love it. And it was really, I was trying to explain to her, I was like, I am a simple girl, right? Like, and I'm not like a taker, right? And so even that guy that I had met, it's like, why in my mind was I gonna feel bad, because he spent X amount of money on me? If that's what he wants to do, that's what he wants to do. Like, let the man treat you right. And so there's some things that we have to learn, and then there's things that we have to unlearn. And it's very, very, very important. And so in that conversation with her, I just kind of learned, and I learned more about my cousin, and it was just cracking me up because she's so serious. Like, she's hilarious, but she was serious. And she has a standard. And I would encourage you all to have a standard, right? The way that God has created you, who He has called you to be, see the value in what it is, see the value in that, right? Because is there anything that is too hard for God? The God that made the heaven and the earth, like, look around at the mind of God and understand, one of my mentors, he told me, he said, you can have whatever you want because you're a child of God, right? And, and when you've submitted your life to God and righteousness, and you are living for Him, and right now, God looks after you and He wants the best for you. So don't settle for things. Don't look at things and just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? Like, yeah, I can tell a guy, yeah, let's just go here, but let him lead, right? And that was the thing that stood out in our conversation with him. I mean, with her, because she's been on dates. He took initiative. He did X, Y, and Z. He planned everything out, but she was very, very. I was very impressed. Like when I was like, oh wow, I was like, man, maybe I need to go to New York. Like, okay, that's how they acting down there, but. It for both of us, we were like, okay, these type of men are out there. And like I said, I'm not getting into the whole details, but the whole point of it was the standard portion and how she had a standard. He met that standard, but he met it even higher. And she was just completely blown away, but she didn't settle. And she told me that she has turned down and she won't accept certain things. She's paying attention, and anything that is going to come and diminish or make her second guess, oh no, not even a reply or a DM back you're going to get. My cousin, she told me she'd be blocking, right? So that is our episode for today. Raise your standard, know who you are, and don't settle. Not in your relationships, not in friendships, not in business, not in anything. Like, go for it. Like, go for it, right? I don't care. If no one's done it, you be the person that does it. And don't let anyone make you feel bad for having a standard. So raise your standard. That is our episode for today. Again, shout out to my cousin, because I told her, I said, I don't know, but I was like, wait, I got my episode. I got it. And thank you, Holy Spirit. Because I was like, God, what am I going to talk about? But again, I love how these stories become podcast episodes. And I hope somewhere in the conversation you learned something. I hope somewhere in the conversation you saw an area that maybe you can improve, or an area where you feel like, hey, let me think on that. And as always, God loves you. Jesus loves you. Stay close to God. Raise your standard. Know who you are. And be blessed. I'll talk to you guys next week.